Okay. So I would like to preface all of our discussions, especially like with this kind of infrastructure engineering choices, etc., with like rule number one: people who implement something, they decide eventually, right? Like, I mean, it's just like the reality. So everything, for example, like I'm saying, etc., just again consider them more of a like guideline, etc., and then just to make sure, like the goal from my end for this conversation is just to make sure that whatever will be built within the pipeline that you guys want to build, right, it will get properly attached on one end in terms of ingesting data, and then the results of the work will probably get, you know, published somewhere, and, you know, also a specific format. Everything in between, I could essentially, I could give you some suggestions that I think will be better, you know, for this or that situation. But ultimately, again, you essentially have ultimate freedom in whatever you want to do.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't have too much preference as long as we have a way to continually get and save the data somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you have specific like list of questions or like structure for this conversation, or how do you want to proceed?
Okay, so yeah, so I guess just initially we do need a way to, so as I understand it, we'll save primarily at least the raw CSVs probably to Dataverse.
Yes. So consider the Dataverse is like a bucket, right? It's just much better in terms of versioning metadata than just using, let's say, AWS S3 or GCP, you know, JS buckets. We just have like a better solution, better suitable for open science, because what we need is essentially, right, we need traceability of data, where data is coming from, and, you know, kind of what we do with it. So Dataverse covers that, because we ingest in the data there, we work on metadata like upkeep. And again, it's not on your team, but we have a dedicated data hub team that is getting formed right now that will essentially maintain the descriptions and all of that. So afterwards, when people kind of, let's say, see the results of your work, they could kind of see like where the guys get the data from. And it's not, you know, like typically when you do projects, you will have like your GitHub repo, and then, right, you will have links where you download the data. The moment when that resource is not available anymore, your repo gets dead, right? Like no upkeep, nobody could run it, nobody wants to fork it, etc. So to avoid this, we essentially, every data you use, we have an option, since again, we're working with open, publicly available data sets, we upload it to our Dataverse. We obviously in metadata will have the links, connections, referrals, like citations, where the data is coming from. But then your data pipeline that you're building is stable now. So that's the idea behind Dataverse.
Okay, and yeah, you probably already had some of this stuff, but Kevin, do you know how, or do you have the information on how to work with Dataverse, or at least know where to get it?
Yeah, I know where to get it. Yeah.
Okay. So, so yeah, the main thing is we do have some of the initial code to pull in the various data sources at the moment. We'll probably add more to that in the future as we need to integrate more data sources. But I really want that to run on a daily basis, so we have the data getting stashed somewhere on a daily basis. So, in the past, I've used Airflow before. I don't know if you have, Kevin. Or
Yeah.
we need some way to schedule the thing to run daily.
Okay.
Okay, so regarding scheduling, it would be really great to speak with Liam. So he is like our security/DevOps person, because I know he wants to set up like Jenkins to orchestrate those type of jobs, etc. So there's like, again, one option is just to get contact with him and just get on that kind of like a schedule of running those jobs.
Isn't
Or
isn't Jenkins a CI/CD platform? It's not really meant to
yeah,
run.
right. But I mean, like your job, you package it into container, and then you need to trigger that container to run. So it just, I mean, this is option one and that type of route, right? Another one is essentially what you're proposing. Again, you set up your Airflow. I forgot, like it's right. You need to run an instance with it, right? That's how it works, or is it like a function, cloud function or something?
Yeah, you can run it. It was basically Airflow will run a DAG on a specific schedule. So here we package it, and it would launch whatever instance
Yeah.
to run.
So since you had experience with it before, I think it makes sense for you to essentially set up the way you used to do, and then we'll figure. I mean, like since it's pipeline that right now doesn't need to communicate with anything else, right? This is kind of like it's isolated sandbox type of environment. So I don't see an issue for you just setting up Airflow and do it that way. So the only thing right now, the connection, it should be like Dataverse should be like that place that you pull data from somewhere and upload it to Dataverse.
Yeah.
On a daily basis, bi-weekly basis, whatever you see fit. I think I mean, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. What was it? Oh yeah, there is. I was actually just talking with this Mark Shapiro guy, and he does. They do have their own set of data they're using for that Beat 19, and we might get access to the kind of more privileged data, and that data we cannot put on publicly on Dataverse. That needs to actually be restricted only to people that sign the agreement. So where do you think would be the best place to store that?
So for this type of stuff, that's a good like conversation to have, because again, like right now, Corona, why we're all like this open science community, right? So by default, everything is like publicly available. Now regarding this, the question is like next one. You mentioned this type of agreement, essentially kind of NDA, right? Don't disclose something. The question is who is signing that agreement,
Yeah.
right?
So basically, this data could include potentially identifiable patient information. So it can't. The only people that could access it would be people from probably our team or potentially others if they needed it who signed the agreement would have access
But
to it.
yeah, but the question is still who are these people like on the team? Is it like just a bunch of individuals that signed that agreement, or
Well, we
just kind
haven't.
of bureaucracy type of structure?
Yeah. I mean, we haven't signed the agreement yet,
Yeah.
but from what I heard from him, like it would be good to have like the minimum number of people possible. So the question is, would like for instance our data engineering type people need to sign that too, just if they're creating the pipeline that transports it, or like would you for instance have to sign it if you own the GCP architecture that hosts it or something like that?
So this organizational question would definitely need to have like a separate conversation about this, just like from the org perspective. From the infrastructure point, right? First of all, for Dataverse, you can have private data sets as well, so not available to public, right? So in terms of that, you could still use all of that stuff. However, just again, like I guess it will be after we will have this like organizational discussion. Maybe there could be some other solution. Right now, preliminary, I'll just put this again. Still use Dataverse, but don't make the data set public. It will be just private with a set of accounts to access it. So like there won't be no problems with that. And yeah, and everything. So I mean, if we will deal with this patient like privacy, like privacy sensitive data sets, that's why it again makes sense to consider all of this as like a separate sandbox isolated environment. then again, just that takes data somewhere, stores it in a private dataverse that doesn't have public access to it. Then the pipeline again takes, processes the data, yada yada yada, and to the extent that we could publish the result of that data, again, we get it into like some public things.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's all within the specific infrastructure pipeline.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I did. Yeah, this could be, I guess, yeah, a different discussion. I did talk with him, and he said that derivative works. So, like, if we trained a model on that data, then we could release the model publicly. Just the data set couldn't be released publicly because it contains potentially stuff that could de-anonymize the people listed in it. So,
Yeah. Another option is actually if, for example, for whatever reason like this, kind of like our dataverse, even like like privately hosted data on our dataverse won't be enough for this for the guys who are at the source of that data set. We could again just stick to like private buckets, like an isolated project on GCP or something like this. So I think it won't be an issue from just infrastructure side. It will all just follow whatever organizational agreements we come up with. So I think we'll be. I mean, I don't see any blockers on that end.
okay. That sounds good. Also, I mean, I was just wondering just how this is going to operate at a kind of team level. We obviously have a couple people who are going to focus on some of the data engineering work here. I know there are people actively working in data sets. Should we basically just handle all of our data needs, or is I don't know if you're ingesting similar time series data on the data set side. It would be good to just centrally organize all that, I guess.
So right now, essentially, like all of that is getting organized surrounding our dataverse, right? And it's just a couple of people running all of this. So again, we could easily coordinate. So for example, like if you have a data source that you need to essentially crawl, every day or something just to pull the data in, etc. Like you just, I mean, we have people who are currently doing the same crawls for this GitHub, like we're pulling all of the publicly available data sets related to COVID-19 from GitHub. Like nothing, like we just kind of tell them this, here is the link, source of the data we want to have on Dataverse. And I think like those guys will deal with it. But if it's something like this sensitive or something like unique in terms of how the data get accessed, then I would leave it in the scope of this team.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
I mean, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, centrally from our perspective, we're trying to essentially create a very wide, I guess, almost table where we have each day listed and then all the different data sources joined together just as one kind of large table so that we can easily pull in the necessary columns for the models like mobility, weather, new cases, essentially everything listed out as columns, and then the rows are just each day. That's our central kind of goal right now.
So what we could do, again, just like to make everything more simple and introduce less friction for your team, is just to simply, we'll just do like a sandbox, like a dedicated project on GCP, right? And then you start trying different pipelines and see what works best, because I definitely see that there are no immediate best solution for this, right? Like we don't know yet that, for example, I don't know, I think you propose BigQuery to use for this and that, just for this data. It definitely looks like it's suitable, but just from the sake of being vendor locked, because we should be ready to move to any other cloud the moment when we're out of GCP funds, but we have AWS funds, etc. So everything should be like this hybrid solution ready. So ideally, let's say if you want SQL database, okay, just use SQL database and play with different like data schemas, architectures for best performance for your use case. Then also the key value storage could be super suitable for this because you have time series for, let's say, so you want to merge geospatial data with time series, right? That's kind of one of will be the big factors in architecture in all of this.
Yeah, I mean that's one. I mean the primary thing is we just have like a very, I guess, well, at the moment, just a very wide data frame with a bunch of different columns that will probably get wider. So it actually doesn't have that many rows per se, but it has a ton of different columns with all the different types of data. And some of those are different types. So we want to be able to do that and query it quickly, and particularly query it based on county quickly. So like quickly, like just get the results sorted in chronological order for a specific county. Those are probably our most common operations. So.
Well, again, it just validates my ideas that it sounds like it's better to experiment with different solutions. Right? So start with something and then experiment, and then eventually pick up something like hybrid cloud ready, like high performance solution for this. And there are plenty of them to try. So I think your proposal of just starting, okay, let's put it all in a big query, for example, start playing with it to make sure that the pipeline works in automated fashion, and only then you start kind of, okay, let's massage this, let's massage that section, and so on. So I think whatever you have planned in mind, it's probably the way to go, and then we could optimize later. Because like if you have just again a huge table at this point, and again, if you don't have that many rows, I'm not sure that BigQuery is the way to go, because the whole benefit is when you have really lots of rows, and then you just, again, it's a really scalable solution to query that. If you don't have that many rows, and then especially if the structure of the data is actually not that clear, because if you have geospatial things, etc., I would kind of choose something that is like this key value. So let's say for county, you store all of the time series in a value blob, and for example, like if you for example, like we already have MongoDB cluster up and running, and we will upgrade it soon, like in the next week or so. And so we will have a really fast MongoDB instance. And MongoDB, from my personal experience, is super great in dealing with geospatial data, because there are tools to essentially create queries, geospatial queries, so essentially on the map, you do like a polygon. Okay, I want to query this area. We are like MongoDB Compass. It's just like a tool to access the MongoDB. And then after that, it created like this huge query for you that is like query all of the data with with GPS data, and just gives you like the list, like the data collection for that, and so on. So you can be very productive. You can provide these productivity tools to people who want to, let's say, work with specific areas, etc. But this is like, they will be useful if you have like geolocation, like GPS coordinates. If we're talking about just simply county level data, country, and things like that, so essentially a table, more of a tabular format, then again, SQL databases probably will be a better choice, and so on. So again, just another validation to the point that try different things, and start with something. Start like what I would definitely advise to start with something really widely known, and again, hybrid cloud ready. So it shouldn't be tied to whatever cloud provider out there, but otherwise it's good to go. Do you guys need to do like a graph relations on the data or no?
What on the data?
So like some graph relations.
Not
Yeah.
at. Oh wait, yeah.
So
I
I
don't.
mean, like, do you need graph databases or something for some use cases or something like that?
Not at the moment, and that's another thing. Some of our things might change over time. Right now, we just basically have this big table, but as we acquire more data and try to merge in more geospatial features, we might have to do stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think for the most part, we just need some play. We just at the moment we just need these pipelines to run on a daily basis, and at
Mhm.
least stash a CSV file somewhere, and have that
Mhm.
code all be kind of consistent and reliable. Because there's also been some problems with like sometimes like data frames not getting sorted the right way, and then we pass that into the model and it's trying to
Mhm.
forecast on a large number of negative cases, which makes no sense. So,
Okay. So let's do it this way. So we're setting up essentially this first like a lab environment, essentially for beta testing of all of the pipelines, automated pipelines, right? So again, we're going away from the cowboy stage of just simply having Python notebooks like run manually, right, to more of a pipeline structure. So we'll set up a dedicated like project. So do you rely like at this point, do you rely on any Google Cloud services? Like, let's say, besides this idea of using BigQuery, or do
uh,
you think you want Google Cloud?
right now, we do rely pretty heavily on GCP, at least in terms of
Mm,
storage. So right now, actually, our model framework when I originally wrote it is
mm,
linked to GCP. So, for instance, as the model trains, weights are stashed to Google Cloud. Other
mm,
results are stashed there. Training logs. So basically, everything uh, is stashed to Google Cloud storage. We're not using too many other Google Cloud services besides storage
mm.
at the moment, but
Okay, good.
storage is pretty deeply integrated.
Okay,
Um,
so again, let's start with Google Cloud then, like dedicated project. I'll give you, Isaac, like essentially like an owner permissions, and then you will again distribute them amongst your team, whatever is needed. Um, and then what we will do is essentially, so don't like the idea for this environment is just to make sure pipeline work, right? But in terms of scaling all of that stuff, we will have extra step afterwards after we play in this phase a little bit, like, you
okay,
know?
yeah.
So the idea is to have everything automated and working on some data sources, etc., not necessarily like scalable like to the whole data that you have access to, because especially if it's this patient data that is like sensitive, etc., for that we will patch in like Liam, our like security continuous integration person, so that way we could do like a kind of audit of the security in terms of that there are no data leakage that's not supposed to be to the outside world, etc., and then we scale everything like from that end, and execution of that scale solution I think will be done with Dockerized pipeline. So the pipeline, whatever you guys do right now, probably don't think about Dockerizing or anything. Just do whatever needs to be done from your end to do it quickly. And then afterwards, we will, like next round, we'll be Dockerizing it, doing the security edits, etc. And then we could scale it to whatever privacy sensitive data we have. Something like this. That's how I see where it kind of it will evolve eventually. But right now we have GCP cloud, like do whatever you want to, like try whatever you want to try and see which solution work with, like which is not, and so on. Just create that knowledge, institutional knowledge for the team, and then we will have enough material to essentially think through what will be like the next step of productionizing this.
Okay.
Does it sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I definitely have been talking a lot. Kevin, Matan, do you have any questions, comments, thoughts about how this should be structured? Since, yeah, I envision, I guess, you guys as my kind of primary data architecture and engineering experts. So,
Yeah, I have no questions right now. So, well, actually, I guess so. We're primarily we're going to be working. It sounded like with GCP rather than what is it?
Dataverse.
Dataverse. Yeah.
So, Dataverse is like GCP is a cloud provider. Dataverse is a specific tool to deal with our versioning of data and like metadata for the data set, etc.
Okay, but I mean, at this point, should we spend time reading up on Dataverse?
Oh, absolutely. Because
Yeah.
again, like so,
Okay,
like
okay.
we start with Dataverse, and eventually the results of like whatever you like models you create, etc. Again, you deploy. You upload to Dataverse again.
Okay, got it.
So it's just kind of like this is like all of the data artifacts, model artifacts, etc. Dataverse is that place that Corona Y kind of data hoards everything. So definitely get familiar with Dataverse. That's it. Again, it's an awesome system. We have like Slava Tikhonov is the guy who actually a technical lead for Harvard University for their Dataverse instance. And again, Harvard, MIT, it's like a huge project that started like decades ago to kind of essentially cover the science needs of storing data. Slava also do like a tech lead for European Union. There is like some long name of institution in a similar role. So all of the data needs of big institutions are getting covered by Dataverse as a platform. And the cool part is for Corona Y, we have like the latest cutting edge instance of it. So it's all run on Kubernetes. It's all like very scalable, etc. So when you'll be reading up about Dataverse, you will see that it's a long old project. So a lot, every long project has these issues, kind of like it started a long time ago, and engineering decision back then, these days could be considered not, great for this and that. In our case, since we're on the latest branch of Dataverse, everything is like done right. It's really modern, it's really scalable, and it works nicely for us.
Okay, thank you.
okay. So yeah, this all sounds good. So yeah, I think we've gotten good at outlining our needs. Yeah. So yeah, well, why don't we work with what we've kind of come up with here, Kevin, Matan. Oh yeah, and there was that other guy too in our channel. I don't remember his exact name now, but yeah, you three I think will be the main ones working on some of this data architecture stuff, if that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm.
So just yeah, be in touch with me and Slava and Anton as needed. And yeah, we can hopefully work to get this set up. That sounds good.
Yeah, one of the like asks from my end, please share like the moment when you have something, even like if it's a paragraph of architecture or anything, please share the document with me so I could kind of like tag along and follow the evolution of the process. And the moment when I will see that, oh, there is like enough information to discuss with our like this continuous integration DevOps team, right? I immediately kind of get to them, provide some feedback. So we have this essentially like rolling release type of stuff. Because like what I found, like people within Corona Y, since we're mostly coming from academia, majority of people, everybody has this troubles of kind of like, oh, everybody waits for a deadline to kind of submit something like, oh, I'm working on this, it will be ready in 3 days. And then obviously 3 days is not enough. And on the fifth day, it's still like nobody's seen the result of the work. But we are open source community, and people who are coming, like who had experience with open source and stuff, know that you first start with like really empty repo, and then just simply start committing there. And the moment when people see that, oh, there is enough thing for me to kind of to tag along, fork, add, do pull requests, they will start doing this. So please follow the same like open source type of best practices. Just simply put out everything you do like immediately. It makes everything much easier for people to kind of get this network effect up and running. So please share the architecture kind of ideas, drafts, etc. And then again, we will have some input from other people, because we don't know, maybe we have somebody within community who is like, guys, like why are you choosing to use, I don't know, MongoDB for time series data if this is the best solution for it, or something like that, And for that, you need to post like a picture on Slack or something, and people will tell you how wrong you are. That's actually the whole point. Post something that you know immediately that it's not like, fully like correct, not right. And people will tell you where you're wrong, and you will get much better feedback versus when you just kind of like, oh, let me kind of think everything through, etc. No, just put some stuff out there and people will tell you what is wrong, and then you'll get much better, you'll have much faster result at the end of the day. And also think, so we start with Dataverse as kind of data source, right? But then eventually, whatever you do, I would like strongly suggest to think about like having the data as an output in like MongoDB. Why is that? Because if it's in Mongo, like in some collection on our MongoDB, then somebody could just simply take the data and create like a web app or create a Power BI visualization out of it without actually, kind of bothering you with, oh, can you give me this data schema or that data schema? You always just refer them, guys, mongodb.chronoy.org collection, like some awesome results, and people will deal with everything later. So they could see kind of, oh, this is awesome patient something data we could plot on the map. So let me do a heat map or something on Google Maps API. But then it's not like nobody bothering you, and you are getting that result. And you could say, like if somebody asks like, what do you do for Corona Y? And you tell them like, go check out that map. This is the data like built on our Airflow pipeline that we built, things like that. So that's kind of like our goal for the community overall, just to get to that point that everybody kind of sits in their comfortable space, like, working environment, like their own lab. But then this infrastructure connects everybody together. And then obviously somebody tends to do like backend work. It's really hard to say like, what are the results of your work if you're a backend engineer, right? I mean, you can always tell, but only other backend people understand what it is. But if you want to kind of have this something, so Corona Y, like being volunteer at Corona Y means something to the world, we should be like in this environment when even somebody who just simply uploaded and yet another like data source to our Dataverse, then could say, oh, here's, look at, like, it's a nice visual out of that data set. So this is what we're essentially building over here, right? This like huge DAG of computation from Dataverse all the way to some like web app front end environment.
Got it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Okay, that all sounds good. So yeah, as we were just saying, when you do guys actually, maybe it would be useful to do like a design doc and then share it with me and Anton about like what you want to do for a pipeline. But when you do get that, like, definitely share it. And yeah, besides that, does anyone have any other questions?
I got nothing.
Okay. So yeah, I think this was a useful meeting. I will upload this video and post it to the channel, just so others can see it. I'm actually kind of backed up on posting some of the YouTube videos, but I'm gonna hopefully get that done today. I think I'm a couple meetings back. But yeah, if there's nothing else, yeah, everyone have a good day and nice talking with you.
Yeah, likewise.
everyone.
Thanks for, yeah. Okay, bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.